Hey gang, and welcome to Breaking Barriers from the PGMOL. This is the latest episode in the Breaking Barriers series, where referees join us to talk about what they've learned on the job and how they've got to where they are as part of the organisation's wider work and commitment to diversity and inclusion. We're so excited about sharing even more brilliant stories today and some real life experiences from across very different areas of the beautiful game. The focus of today's discussion will be around referee development. So we've got referees from different stages of their careers with us this afternoon. Referees, of course, very often scrutinised for their on-field decision-making, but their development professionally off the field is a very, very important part of matters and something that many people don't even really think about when they're watching referees perform in the Premier League and all the way down the divisions of English football. Now, this session is going to draw on the experiences of our panellists who've all had very, very different journeys to this stage of their careers. And we're really excited to get a chance to share them with you. I'm Kate Mason. I work as a broadcaster in football for people including the BBC, and I used to be with Sky Sports. I've had the pleasure of hosting a Breaking Barriers session last season with refereeing colleagues from England, Canada and Australia. And today's guest, of course, slightly closer to home. Very much looking forward to sharing some insight into the barriers that I've broken on my journey too, while learning from our fantastic panel today. So let's introduce them, shall we? Our special guests. First up, Jacob Viera, a level 4 referee from Liverpool County FA. Jacob, it's so great to have you with us. Thanks for joining us on Breaking Barriers with your absolutely splendid backdrop there.
Hi, Kate. Thanks for having me tonight.
Oh, it's great. Your journey is really a special one, so I'm very excited to speak more about it in today's session. And I hope we're going to hear much more about how your experiences are helping you to achieve on-field success. So very excited for that. Also joining us today, Premier League referee Peter Banks. Peter's journey to becoming a Premier League and FIFA ref also included a spell operating at the highest level as an assistant referee. Off the pitch, Peter's a coach and mentor within the Liverpool County Football Association, working with referees from all levels, including Everton and Liverpool academies. Peter, thanks for joining us. We've got a kind of Scouse contingent with us today.
Yeah, we have, Kate. Looking forward to it. My story's not quite as interesting as Jacob's, but I'll try my best.
All right, well, I'll try and draw it out of you, you know. We're also delighted to be joined by one of the most distinguished match officials in English refereeing history, Mike Mullarkey. An assistant referee on the 2010 World Cup final. Mike is also the only English official ever to have been appointed to the World Cup final, Champions League final, and the Europa League final. What a collection. Since retiring in 2016, Mike has held the position of head of assistant referees at PGMOL, a role he'll be offering an insight into during today's discussion. So Mike, all of those tough experiences, they've really prepared you for today's session, I'd imagine.
I'd like to think so, but we'll see what you have in store. But good evening, everybody.
We're not going to be putting the thumb screws on this one too much, hopefully. Gemma is also joining us today. She is the refereeing project officer at the Football Association, supporting the delivery of the FA's national referee strategy. Gemma, how many referees does that mean you're looking after in England?
Grand total of 29,000, Kate. So yeah, big number across the pyramid, but also all those support networks and workforces that go with it. So yeah, great group of people.
Absolutely mind-blowing number. So yeah, it's great to get a sense of great to get all of those people to some degree represented by this illustrious group we've got with us today. Look, Jacob, if you don't mind, it'd be great to start with you because you've had a truly extraordinary experience to get to this, or an extraordinary life story, I guess, to get to this stage of your career. Because you started out as a footballer. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I was a footballer before. I used to play for my country in Kenya. And then 7-8 years ago, I traveled to this country where I was invited for a trial. But before then, obviously back at home, before I flew to UK, I had gone to represent my country in the neighboring country where I was involved. Some gang wanted me to help them transfer drugs, which I didn't cooperate with them, and I ended up being electrocuted just before I came over to UK. So when I came for my trial, the state I was in, it was just, I didn't have skin on my face or on my neck. And when I flew to Newcastle, some of the lads there, the academy managers, they just couldn't believe what they were seeing, and they just wanted me to tell them why I was looking the way I was with the scars on my face and on my neck. So obviously, I went with them in a room, explained to them, told them what had happened to me before I flew over there, and they thought it was very dangerous for me to go back there, and advised me to claim asylum. So I didn't know what asylum was, so I asked them for more information about the asylum. They explained to me what asylum was, and basically told me if I was granted asylum, I'll be able to just live here if I'm granted permission to stay in UK, basically have the UK residency, live here, sign my professional contract, and just play my football and focus on my career. Anybody in my situation would have agreed and taken the same advice on board, and basically that's what I've done. And when I claimed asylum, I didn't realize it was going to take a very long time, to be honest. And it took more than 5 years before I was granted UK residency. Meanwhile, while I was still here in UK awaiting for my UK residency, I was just always involving myself with doing coaching courses, football courses. As a player, I was also playing, although at the time I had been given many opportunities by some of the professional clubs, but because of my migration status, I wasn't allowed to sign any professional contract. So normally I just used to take courses, any opportunities given to me. I would always make use of anything that was provided to me. And then because I didn't have any family member here in UK, I know it was very tough. And through the asylum process as well, it was very challenging, because sometimes you could go days without knowing when you're going to get your decision. And obviously because I didn't have any family here, it was just on my own. And therefore the people who I came, when I got to Liverpool, the people I came with, the church, St. Anne's Catholic Church, they became part of my family. While I was here in Liverpool, doing courses and playing with the local teams, I was introduced to one of the academy managers by then, Mr. Stuart Carrington, who was at Everton Academy. And within a short period of time, I was there training with the under-18s, which was a very big opportunity that I never knew I would have got by then. So I had to just wait, kept waiting for my UK residency, because until then, that's when I was allowed to maybe work or study or carry on with my professional career. So unfortunately, I got an ACL injury, so I had to be out for more than 9 months. And during this period, that's when Stuart introduced me to the Liverpool County FA, where I met Mr. Dave Hollick, who was the referee development officer, who introduced me to the colleagues who are obviously the best people I've ever met, and they became my family. They became my colleagues, my friend. And from then, there was a referee course that was introduced, and I was given the opportunity, because then I wasn't working. I wasn't able to pay for even the course. They paid for the course. I'd done the referee course because I just wanted to be involved with football, carry on. Obviously I was waiting for my status. At the same time, I just wanted to carry on with life. And that's how I done the referee course, passed my referee course. During that time, I was doing my rehabilitation. I was also carrying on with the refereeing. So I would start with the kids. And then I've never looked back.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your story, Jacob, in such beautiful detail and talk us through everything you've been through. Peter, look, I guess most of our stories involved today, that's such an extraordinary thing that Jacob has been through. But when he talks about finding a community within the referees and being taken care of to some degree by the FA and by his community, would you say that is something that fairly often encourages people to want to work in refereeing, is that sense of community and being a part of something bigger than yourself?
Absolutely. I think certainly with the support networks that are in place, Jacob's obviously story is incredible, but for anybody who takes up the whistle for the first time and progresses on their journey, you'll have people who initially take your referee course at the county FA who'll support and encourage, and then you gradually just come into contact with so many wonderful people, those who are willing to support, encourage, offer advice, and that starts at the level that Jacob obviously when he did his course and the level that he's at now, and it goes right through the pyramid. So it is a referee family. There's healthy competition right throughout the levels, but my best friends now outside of football I've met through football. So it's Jacob's story in terms of community is certainly not unique, although obviously the rest of it is a phenomenal story that he's just shared with us. Yeah,
really beautiful to hear. And Gemma, how much of your day-to-day then is looking after the different needs of referees? Is that the main thing that you focus on, referees' kind of well-being up and down the country?
Yeah, sure. So that's obviously a massive part of it, because anything a referee do is to make refereeing better and to make the experience of that referee enjoyable and safe and inclusive as possible. So all of it is down to sort of how we can develop the referee, the experience on field, off field, making that as easy and as appealing as possible.
Yeah, and Mike, Peter already mentioned the kind of healthy, the camaraderie, of course, but then the healthy sense of competition that must presumably exist between people who are competing in such a competitive industry. How do you manage that day to day, Mike? Because obviously you're someone who's been to the absolute very top of refereeing.
Yeah, Peter's absolutely right. First and foremost, it's about the camaraderie, but everybody wants to be the best that they can. And I think the only person that people should feel they're competing with is themselves. If you are the very best that you can be, then you should be satisfied and pleased with that. And if there are others who achieve different things than you can, then so be it. But I think what's important is that the overall development is about the person as a whole. So yes, it's centered around refereeing, but refereing's brought me an awful lot of life skills as well, be it teamwork, be it communication, being it problem solving, managing situations, and all of those skills are things that you develop along the way.
And sticking with you, Mike, how anyone watching this today, hopefully people might be inspired to think about this refereeing journey. Say they're in their early 20s and they're thinking, okay, I'd like to do what Mike's done. I'd like to get to the very top level in this country and go beyond. What would be the first steps they'd need to take?
I mean, first and foremost, the entry point is to contact your local county football association. They will be able to help you with putting you in touch with the referee's course. And once you've passed that course, it's then about building experience in matches. And something that Peter and Gemma will know particularly, and something that Jacob touched upon, is the sort of mentoring and support for officials. So you'll have people there to help you, because it can be quite a lonely place when you start on your own, going out, holding a whistle for the first time. And that support is in place to help people to get through those first few games, to find their feet a little bit, and then to progress from there. So that's the entry point. If you want to then aspire to reach the top, it's a long time. It's historically, it would take somebody maybe 10, 12, 15 years to progress through. And one of the most important things we're working on at the moment is looking to streamline that so that people who demonstrate a suitable talent can progress through the system much more quickly, because we want the best people to have as long as possible at the highest level. So if it takes too long for people to come through, then we don't have the best of them at that time.
Yeah, it's a great point. And of course, Peter, I mean, if you look at the Premier League, a lot of the top Premier League referees at the moment, many of them are, early 50s, right? So how long is your refereeing career likely to be? Because of course there's such a strong element of fitness required when you're going to be doing this job.
Absolutely. There's probably no real answer, Kate. You think you've got to keep yourself in good condition. You've got to look after your body. You've got to be disciplined. And it's a credit to the sort of half a dozen colleagues of mine on SG1 who are still going in the 50s that they've looked after themselves. But as Mike's just alluded to, things may change in the future where younger men and younger women will come onto the scene and maybe have longer careers, maybe decide to retire early. But I think if you look after yourself, you give yourself the best opportunity. I mean, I'm coming up to 40 and I still hope to have at least 10 years at the top. But that will only come if I'm disciplined and look after myself.
Yeah, which is true of anybody, wanting to have a kind of a physically challenging career, which you guys obviously all do. Jacob, you're at level 4 at this point. Do you have a sense of what your next steps will be?
Yeah, for me, to be honest, it's just taking step at a time. And even when I started, I didn't know by now I'd be a level 4 by this time. And obviously in my career, when it was that moment when I had to make a choice between playing and refereeing, I know it was one of the most difficult decision for me to make. But, I spoke to the right people. And, after my first year, when I got nominated to go on the FA Cup program, I think that has really been key to my refereeing progress, because on the FA Cup program, we've always been given mentors, coaches who've been in the game, who've been referees, others are still refereeing, even the Premier League. And I remember even Banksy was my coach on my second year while I was an FA Cup referee. And when you're an FA Cup referee, the expectation is very high. There's always competition, like Peter mentioned, healthy competition. You've got to always have exceptional fitness, laws of the game. You've got to be, up to date with the laws of the game, and your nutrition. A lot goes on within the FA Cup. And for me, that was very key, because you can imagine I was very new in this country, and the culture was completely different with my culture back in Kenya. And when I started, it was very hard, because sometimes when you go to referee a game, I always remember my first game was only a kids game, but to me then it looked like a Champions League game. We had parents shouting and screaming, obviously cheering their kids. They want them to score and win the game. And there I am, just come from Africa and started this refereeing, and I've got no idea about the laws of the game. I'm only starting. And so sometimes it can be very difficult when you're starting and you just think maybe this is not for me. And for me, really, something that really helped me, because I had been given my county FA, Liverpool County FA, was really supporting me through the referee development of SAR, the colleagues who are working there. And then within the FA Cup program, the coaches would normally come down and watch you referee after the game, give you advice on what you need to improve on, what he thinks that maybe next time if you work differently will help you out. And those are the key things that really helped me in my refereeing career. And with the refereeing, like Peter said, obviously it's a family. And if you surround yourself with people who can help you, people who can always support you, you can always achieve anything in life, and there's nothing that's impossible to achieve.
Oh, what a good message, Jacob. I'd be very keen to talk more about that kind of mental health support, and the thing, that you guys must always get asked about, which is the level of aggression that you sometimes might meet with when you're participating in elite or all the way down to completely grassroots level games. But Gemma, I'm interested to hear about FA Core. So this is a program that Jacob has been through. Can you talk us through it in a bit more detail?
Yeah, sure. So FA Core for non-refereeing folk stands for Centre of Refereeing Excellence. So it's the FA Core is a national talent programme for officials that are demonstrating exceptional talent, and they're, as Jacob sort of said, provided with more support, a specialist coach to help them throughout the season on their games. So I guess it's additional support and additional mentoring to officials for talented to get them up the pyramid.
Got it. So it's a process of you're kind of assigned a mentor and you're given particular sessions to work on your training, your referee training. Is that about right?
Yeah, so FA Core referees, we're talking sort of specifically about the national programme, are invited to 4 training sessions a year. So where they'll get together with other referees from their region and go through sort of technical and physical development sessions to help them on their journey.
And Peter, you're a coach with the programme. That's right, isn't it? Yeah. So how do you, I mean, is that something that helps you kind of understand your own approach to refereeing better as well? And how do you find it working with these guys?
Yeah, I think I've been coached by so many different people from different backgrounds over the years that you pick up little things. I'm still being coached currently by Eddie Wolstenholme on Select Group 1. I've worked with various others throughout the years. And it's putting something back in to basically help the next generation. So I did work with Jacob for a year. I currently work with 4 referees quite local to me, who I'll try and go and watch a few times a season, have constant communication with them in terms of how they're preparing for a game, how the actual games go, and then how we can look back and improve. So while core is for those who are showing excellence, we're still looking to improve standards, and it's not a given that they're going to progress. They have to put the work in. So there's a lot of guys now who progress up the ladder who feel they want to put something back into grassroots and the semi-professional game, and hopefully just one small nugget of advice will help these guys to better themselves.
And Peter, where would you say is the biggest jump in the refereeing ladder?
It's difficult at quick, Kate, because when I was a contributory league referee, so that's sort of where I am. It's the Unibond League, so you go from level 3 to level 2 as it was back then. Now they put in an extra step 2B, which is basically the National Leagues North and South. Right. So the step up isn't quite as big. I found it a huge step sort of 10, 12 years ago when I did that. I think now the levels have been introduced to basically make that step smoother. So even going from National League at 2A into the Football League, there's a lot of professional clubs in the National League. So the step up to doing a League 2 match is probably not as big as it was 10 years ago.
Right. So this, as in you're saying that the step up is often informed by kind of the pressure on the games rather than anything else, or what would you say?
Yeah, I think there could be standards. The standard of football can be different and better. I think you're looking at the professionalism of clubs at the next level. And like I say, it's now filtering down even to National League North and South, where you're getting some professional teams. They will just operate completely differently to those semi-professional teams and amateur teams. So, and obviously then you've got the spectator factor where, you know, you may do a game at level 3 where there's only 100 spectators. You go up to 2B and there may be 6,000. And that's something a referee has to consider and prepare themselves for when they make the step up.
Yeah, a nameless championship club that I've recently visited. Oh my goodness, it wouldn't be too hard to work out which one this is. Speaking to them about potentially getting promoted to the Premier League, and some of the people working there were thinking, oh my goodness, I don't know if I'd want that for us, because the one time we've had Premier League opposition, we didn't go to bed for a week because it's such a massive step up from what we're used to in terms of organisation and crowds and all this other stuff. So I don't know if that maps out onto refereeing experience, but you can see how it might. Mike, can you talk to us a bit about your job at the moment? Because I'd understood it that it tended to be that assistant referees and referees was quite a separate pathway, but that's something that you know about on both sides.
Sure. Yeah. So most people, as they progress through in their early stages, act as both referee and assistant. And there comes a point where people specialise to be one or the other. They're actually very different roles, although they link, of course, very closely together. And so my role is looking after the assistant referees within the professional game. So certainly the work that the FA have done with the core programs and the mentoring schemes means that people transitioning into the professional game are far better prepared than they were in previous generations. So that makes my life much easier in terms of that training. I thought I had a busy lot in looking after 300 assistants, and then Gemma says she's responsible for 29,000. So I will reflect on that. But what we then do is try and help those officials progress through to the level that they can, best manage, and whether that's at Premier League level, Championship, League One, League Two, or National League, but helping them be the best that they can.
So they seek you out, do they? Or how does it work? They get in touch with problems, or you try and check in? I mean, at 300 people sounds, I know 29,000, it makes it sound small, but 300 people is still a hell of a lot of people to be attempting to manage in some degree.
Yeah, so they're spread across a team of coaches. So I have a team of coaches that look after all those assistant referees. And my role is to sort of oversee and effectively join things up, I guess. And so one of the things that was important to me as a start point when I took this role in 2016 was to try and be consistent as we could in how we did things at each of the levels, so that as a match official progressed, the way in which they use the flag, the way in which they use the communication system to talk to the referees and the other officials during the game was as consistent as we could be, so that when you talk about people moving up and finding the challenges of the next level, we wanted to make as much of it as consistent to what they're used to already, so that all they need to concentrate on is perhaps the increase in pace of the game or the tactical awareness of the teams in the game, rather than thinking, what should I say in this circumstance and should I flag this incident? So hopefully it's consistent across all the levels that we operate at, but it's the team of coaches that I have that do all the important work, really.
I'm not going to launch into a great discussion about VAR necessarily on this point, but I would imagine that would be one element that is fairly decisively different depending on what you're up to. Mike, do you feel like people have different kinds of temperaments who are drawn into assistant refereeing or standing out in the middle, or what do you think separates those two jobs if people are trying to make that decision themselves in their own careers?
Yeah, they are different roles. I mean, I think the referee is undoubtedly the leader of the team, so I think he or she needs that ability to blend a team and to set the sort of direction for the team. And the skill of an assistant referee is to adapt to the different referees and the different teams that you work in, so that you are supporting in the right way, taking responsibility and to stand up and be counted when you need to be, but without being intrusive and trying to sort of run the show, if you like. So there is a certain difference in the personalities involved, I'm sure. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. And Gemma, I know Sian Massey-Ellis would probably hate to hear me say this, but she's probably certainly one of the most famous assistant referees, isn't she? So I wonder, that makes me think about some of the work that you guys are doing to try and bring more women into refereeing. Can you tell us a bit more about what kind of programs you're doing, or how you're reaching out to women in the footballing community?
Yeah, sure. And I think that's only going to get bigger after the summer, when we've got Rebecca, Lisa and Sian and Chris at the Euros, our home Euros this summer. So yeah, I mean, having role models like Sian and like Rebecca and Lisa operating sort of on the top level they can be are massive to inspiring the next generation of officials. Something that I'm very passionate about, unlocking doors and getting women into not just football and also refereeing. So one of the big sort of flagship programs we have is our Women and Girls event. So we held an event just gone actually in March, where we've got over 100 women together in a room to talk refereeing, talk how to improve confidence, how to improve decision making, how to work together as a team and inspire them and show them what opportunities are available to them. And through that, sort of help them understand the pathway and show them sort of the role models at the top of the game to make them the best they can be. And whether that's just operating on the grass on a Sunday on a grassroots pitch, then brilliant. But actually, if they inspire to be the next Sean, the next Rebecca, then they have the full support of the FA, of the PGMOL. We'll do everything we can to get them there.
Do some people ask about just wanting to just work in women's football, just work in men's football, or is it quite kind of intermingled at this point?
I love this question because actually, yes, we have the opportunity now that if you only want to referee in women's football, you absolutely can. We have the women's pathway, which is completely separate to the men's pathway now, and that came in a few years ago. So we have officials that at the top of the game that only operate on the women's game. We have officials that operate across both. And I think it's really important that there is that opportunity to just do one or the other. I think when we talk referee development, we want to say that to give the referee as much experience as we can. So we wouldn't want to say to do one or the other, but actually it's important that they do what they enjoy. So
that's a real step, right? You're saying that previously it wouldn't have been possible to get enough work in the women's game. Is that why that didn't exist?
Yeah, I mean, we see the growth of the women's game over the last couple of years has been massive, and the women's pathways followed that to make sure that we can actually give the opportunity to officials that only want to do the women's game. So that growth has only come on because of the growth of the women's football pyramid as a whole.
And it's not necessarily something you'd have to do as a full-time job, any of these roles. Is that right, Gemma? You know, let's say if there's people listening now and they're thinking, well, you know, I've got a part-time job already, or I've got this and that I want to do. Is there space for them too?
Oh, absolutely. And actually part of this isn't just talking about getting young people into refereeing. It's getting parents who may take their child to football. Actually, they could be refereeing on the pitch next to them and actually enjoying a similar experience and having something to talk to their children about. We see that quite a lot, which is some sort of mum and daughter duos and father and son and sort of three generations of family refereeing, which is really great. So I think the time will come where we have completely professional setup, but we're actually, with sort of development as a whole and development of refereeing on off the pitch, we're definitely going to get there.
Oh, that's such a lovely idea. I know even one of these Breaking Barriers sessions has had a father-son team on here as well. So it's lovely to think of that. And I think, Jacob, you know, I've heard referees say before that they feel as though all footballers should be made to do some sort of refereeing training. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's good when players know like the laws of the game. So for instance, if you're a referee and you've given a decision and the players understand why you've given that decision, it becomes easier than when you give a decision and you've got to explain why you've given the decision. So I think it's not just professional, even with the grassroots and semi-professional. It will be a very good thing if players were taught how to take part in knowing the laws of the game, and that will really help improve our game.
Yeah, because the frustration, some people, I mean, the number of conversations you see, even from some of our most celebrated pundits, some of the conversations you see, you know, you just think if you looked through the system or the process of making decisions, then there's not really necessarily a question around it. Mike, perhaps now is a good moment to talk about that kind of mental health support, because I guess I'm obliquely talking about that generally when I'm thinking about the reaction of people to the work that you guys do. How does that work within refereeing? Are you assigned someone, you know, like a buddy system to talk to about maybe if you've had a particularly difficult day? Because it's such an unusual career from the perspective of the amount of scrutiny there is on every single one of you.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing to remember is that at the centre of every decision that people want to debate, there is a person who made that decision. And first and foremost, they're a human being with feelings. So absolutely that is central to how we approach things. So we have a psychology team. We've also got peer mental health champions. So there are always people around to pick up those conversations that might be at peer level, or it might be your coach, or it might be part of the psychology team. But most importantly, the first question will always be, how is the person? How are you? How are you feeling? And the perception of we make decisions and we don't care what happens afterwards could not be further from the truth. And all of us have had moments where we've been really upset, really disappointed, and you then need the support of your friends and colleagues, and sometimes friends and support from outside of football is just as important. Somebody who can kind of context what you've done and how it's played out. But absolutely the most important thing is the well-being of the person. Of course, we want to get every decision right. The reality is that can't happen. And so what's important is that person is supported and is ready to go out and do a game sometime, hopefully in the near future.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it, that people, because presumably, you've done your 10,000 hours at least in across many, depending on what level you get to. So the idea that you could just half-assedly put that in and just throw together a few decisions depending on what you've had for lunch is a strange reflection on how people sometimes view the game. And I don't know, Mike, do you find people sort of debating you in the street, or how does that go down? You get stopped?
I think the distinction we have to switch is that there is the uniform that we wear, which gives us an identity as a match official, and then there's the person behind it. And the way I tried to always view it was that they were usually debating me as the match official and the decision I've made relative to their wishes, rather than me as an individual, because they don't know me as a person. And that's the way I would try and deal with it. But you accept that it's part and parcel. If you want to officiate at the highest level, there comes with it a degree of scrutiny, and not all of that is always what you'd wish it to be. So equally, perhaps not reading too many papers or watching too many broadcasts can help at times.
Yeah, I noticed none of you are on Twitter, which is very sensible. Not specifically because of referees, but because it can be a strange old world, can't it? Although one place you guys watching should go potentially, if you're interested in hearing more about this topic of mental health in refereeing and how the support is laid out by the PGMOL and various other organisations. The previous Breaking Barriers session was specifically focused all around mental health. So if you head to the YouTube channel, then you'll be able to get a kind of 45, 50 minutes on that as well. So hopefully you'll find that one interesting. Guys, I feel as though there's a lot of shared experiences from what you've been up to in your careers so far, even though, as discussed at the beginning, you've all had such different experiences. Peter, we're talking about some of the different things that have kind of shaped you as a referee, or shaped each of you here as referees in this industry. Have you had any particular experiences while at work that have made you kind of reflect on the way you do your job and the things that are important to you as a referee working in this strange world of football that we all work in?
To be honest, Kate, I can't think of one specific moment, because my career's been full of highs. There's plenty of lows as well. I think the important thing to do after every game is to reflect, and even when you think you've had a fantastic game, you can always find little moments that you can do better. That's been ongoing for a number of years, and it's even now reaching Select Group 1, I'm still not the finished article by any stretch of the imagination. So coaching is still very important to me. What's probably I'm lucky in the respect that I've got more support in terms of sports psychology, so I can speak to psychologists when a game that hasn't gone particularly well. They can look at things like my body language, how I've spoken to players, how I've dealt with pressure situations. And that could be, things like we'll have all experienced mass confrontations or really being put under pressure by a number of players, and how you deal with that. So while there's not one specific incident, I think it's very, very important for all match officials at all levels to constantly reflect and to use those support networks around them.
Can I ask, a recent episode that I was imagining would have been an absolute nightmare as a referee, Champions League Atletico Madrid Manchester City game. What the hell are you supposed to do in a situation like that? Because you're only one person, and obviously you've got the support of your team and you've got the support of, you know, people in your ear. But what is the thought process?
That's the sort of situation that I'm thinking of, in terms of any referee could dive in there and get right in the middle of it, dish out a lot of yellow, red cards, and not be in control. I think we could scrutinise what the referee did in that particular incident and say, you know, should he have done this? Should he have done that? The one standout thing for me was just how calm and controlled he was while everybody around them was losing their heads. And I think the best referees are those who can control their emotions, who can stay calm and composed, because that will probably be one of the most difficult situations that referees ever experienced. And while you can argue should certain players have had stronger discipline, the standout thing for me was just how he controlled himself and tried to put his calm and influence on everybody else. And that was mirrored by his two assistants, which what Mike alluded to earlier, that this is a referee who's clearly briefed and led his team, set out expectations, and they mirrored what the referee was doing. And I feel they came up with a lot of credit in how they composed themselves and how they handled the situation.
Yeah, agreed. It seems, Mike, as though refereeing might encourage people or might attract people who are quite perfectionist mindsets. I suppose this is linking to another mental health question as well, but not exactly. Like Peters talks about the process where you have to analyze what you've done quite very specifically, and there's a constant process of that. So how do you stop yourself from becoming, or how do you encourage other people around you to not become too kind of down in the weeds about the tiny things that you will inevitably get wrong?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think we're constantly striving for perfection, accepting that you'll never get there. And I think in many ways that's what drives people to look to improve, you know, what they do and how they do it. And it's amazing. I'll talk to people who've got a really good decision called a fantastic onside or offside decision. And when I speak to them, their first comment is something they might have done differently or better. So there is that mindset. And one of the things that we've done a lot of work with over the past few years, particularly with our psychology team, is about signature strengths and recognizing the things that you do really well, because they're the things that will then carry you through when you're having those sort of moments of crisis of confidence, and you have to keep believing, because undoubtedly, particularly with the higher you go in the professional game, you need a certain degree of confidence in your own ability to survive. And part of that is by constantly trying to look to improve, but also part of it is recognizing the things that you do really, really well, which is the vast majority of the decisions that we make.
Yeah, that's anybody watching this who's maybe, even if you're not thinking, right, I'm going to become a referee tomorrow, that signature strength stuff is so interesting, just in all of your workplaces. It's kind of part of the positive psychology, Martin Seligman stuff, research that's been done over the last 25 years about people's careers and how they can best progress. So yeah, I guess it must be a balance between, you're going to attract quite a lot of perfectionists, aren't you? But you want to make sure that they're not being drawn into something that's unhealthy for them, but that they're using that to the best of their ability. And Gemma, it sounds like that's one of the things that's really, there's so much behind all of the work that you guys do in refereeing. There's a lot of online resources. There's a lot of things that perhaps people watching could look up now and check into and get a sense of what kind of things they might learn if they're going down this route. Could you draw us attention to some things or places that people might want to go after this session and take a look?
Yeah, sure. So we have an online module, which is a precursor to doing the referees course, which focuses on the laws of the game, the role of the referee within sort of the match off-field and on-field. So that would be sort of the first port of call for any referees who want to qualify as a referee, but also for anyone out there who almost has that fear when there's no assistant referee and that someone's got to run the line on the game. So that'd be my first port of call. Go and do that module and go and learn about the laws of the game and the role of the referee. And then sort of on that, we have 2 other online modules on match control and assistant refereeing, which go into a bit more detail on how to sort of develop those skills on the pitch too. So yeah, that's definitely one, Kate, for you maybe to follow up on after this.
Are you telling what you're trying to sign me up? I think I might be a bit old, no? What's the age range?
You're never too old, Kate. It's a free module, 90 minutes. Never too old.
But what are we talking about in terms of fitness? No, seriously now, guys. I mean, what am I going to have to do? Pull-ups or what is this? Bleep test. That is what it is, isn't it, Mike? There's a lot of that sort of stuff, isn't there? I've seen people I've worked with go and do these terrible days where they do referee training and realise that they couldn't do it for even 5 minutes.
Yeah, there are physical requirements, but everybody has their level, so I'm sure everybody.
So I'm not trying to put people off. I'm just saying that I'm a great admirer of everything that you do. I'm not, guys watching, I'm not trying to say it'll be impossible for you. Peter, we talked a little bit about assistant refereeing versus refereeing in the middle. Do you feel like the training is a very different prospect, or is it pretty comparable?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that both referees and assistant referees will do. I mean, I was very fortunate to operate on the Premier League for a few seasons. So when I think back when I was an assistant, my physical training would probably be more speed and agility based. And I think, as Mike alluded to earlier, a real technical focus on offside judgments, interpretations, and again, knowing really when and how to assist the on-field referee. The difference I've found since becoming a referee and going down a different pathway was physical training similar, although I probably do a lot more high intensity and sort of endurance work. The key for a referee is knowing how to lead your team, getting the best out of the individuals you work with on a regular basis. Some referees work with the same 2 assistants, some don't. So it's knowing how to get the best out of them. On a personal level, I don't just look at decisions like I alluded to earlier with psychology. I look at how my body language may portray, or during an incident or during a game. How I communicate to players. I work with my peers to discuss which players I can speak to, which players you're best sort of giving a bit of a wide berth because they just want to concentrate on the football, and you'll analyse a bit more your position and movement. So there are some skills that we do collectively as a group, but certainly I do look at things differently since I moved from being an assistant referee to a referee.
Fascinating stuff. Jacob, I don't want to put you on the spot before we close, but how much of training do you enjoy? How much of it, is there anything in particular you look forward to? How tough would you say it is?
To be honest, myself, I've always looked after myself in terms of physical training, rest and recovery. And as I mentioned, as part of the FA4 referee program, there's things we are told to do. So for us, we are supposed to give excellence in everything that we do. So how we engage with our coaches, availability to referee games regularly, attending FACO meetings, just being professional, committed, driven, and willing to make sacrifices for long-term betterment as a referee. So for me, really, I always look after myself and I always work hard. And one thing that, my dad used to tell me was every single day, keep reminding yourself to be the very best that you can be. And he used to say that good enough isn't good enough if you can be better, and better isn't good enough if you can be best. So you just keep working hard, keep doing everything that you need to keep. And for me, really, because like I said, I take every step at a time. For me, the next step is just getting my level 3. But whether it's this season, whether it's next season, I'm just somebody who's always grateful for what I've achieved so far. And I just don't take it for granted. And I'm just happy. And every day for me, it's just a blessing. So to any referee like who's just obviously starting or thinking about like doing the course, all I could say is when you start, sometimes you make mistakes in the games because you're just starting, but you can only become better by learning from their mistakes and not committing the same mistakes ever again. And just enjoying, that's the most important thing, just enjoying. I know there's always setbacks, there's always challenges, but in life, particularly everything, that's just in every other job is the same. The most important thing is just how you enjoy it. And if you don't enjoy it, just use your support network, your friends, your county affairs, the FA. I'm just one individual who's really benefited from the opportunities that have been given by the FA, my county FA, and they're doing a great job. And for anybody who's obviously want to try, want to start, just have a go. And tell you what, there's a lot of benefits and you'll enjoy, you'll go to places you've never imagined to be. And I'm just an example of somebody who's always grateful, for this, what I've achieved, for this moment. That's just how I live my life.
Jacob, thank you. I'm not sure we can top it off with anything more than that. So that seems like a pretty perfect place to end the session. Peter, Jacob, Mike, Gemma, thank you so much for joining us for the latest of the Breaking Barriers series. It's been such an important topic. We've covered a hell of a lot, and it's been so interesting to hear about what you've done in your professional journeys. And I hope that everybody listening has got something out of it, and you'll be back for the next session of Breaking Barriers. So look out for details on that when that one's next out. You can follow the PGMOL across social media. Just search for @FA_PGMOL, and all of the sessions are available to watch back in full on the PGMOL YouTube channel. So we've plugged that one already. Please do share, like, subscribe, and we can talk about the discussions that we've been having today. Ladies and gents, thank you for such an inspiring hour or so. It's been a real joy to talk to you. Thanks for giving up your time. And everybody at home, I hope we'll be seeing you very soon for another session of Breaking Barriers.